Welcome back to the Gone for 10 show. It is the Larry Taylor with the Tony Rosina. How are you on the Monday?
Oh, it's great. It's great to have you back, Larry. Obviously, we did have a better looking Bulldog supporter last episode, but he's not here today and you are. So welcome back, the Larry Taylor.
Oh, look, Rob does look better at the moment. But look, Rob, I'm on a diet. And once I've got one chin less, I think I'll come back for you. But nonetheless, we are here to talk about Rugby League. By the way, ever since Peter V'landys called it Rugby League, have you ever been able to say Rugby League again? I can't bring myself to do it. It's Rugby League.
Even if you say it or if you heard it said, like it just sounds weird now. It just sounds like Rugby League is what needs to be said. And if you say Rugby League, you can go for 10, Larry.
I agree. The Rugby League. It seems the NRL did listen to you. I don't recall a sin bin happening all weekend, so not bad. Anyway, let's talk about the Rugby League. If you are new here, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button and do like the video. It does help us a lot, so we do appreciate it. But let's not waste any more time. Let's talk about the 10 things we learnt after round 5. So firstly, Manly, not a one-man team. Daly Cherry Evans really stepped up, and I got to say, I thought it was a really good performance by the Manly Seagulls against the Newcastle Knights. And I will give you credit where it's due. Maybe your prediction of Newcastle finishing 14th doesn't seem as outrageous as it initially did seem to me. Nonetheless, what did you make of the Manly performance? How do you think they looked without Turbo Trbojevic?
Yeah, obviously, they looked good without Turbo. It kind of gelled well. Daly Cherry Evans took control of that game, like he usually does when Turbo's out. Now, you did give me credit for that Newcastle tip. I will say they have been quite unlucky when it's come to sim bins, send-offs, suspensions, and injuries. So we're only 5 rounds in, Larry. There's a long way to go, but Manly just look like a team that's finally starting to gel. They're putting the dramas happening at the club behind the scenes. They've put the injury behind their scenes, and it's 3 wins in a row. And I don't think you can look at either of those wins and say it was because of Tom Trbojevic, because it wasn't.
Yeah, I agree. He's had a quiet start to the season, Tom Trbojevic, hasn't he? Can I ask you, and I don't want to spend too much time on Manly because no one likes Manly except people who live in Manly, but on Trbojevic, he won the Dally M last season, and I maintained the opinion of I think he was just the beneficiary of the speed, the ridiculous speed that the game was being played at, almost touch football-like. And that's not to say he's not a great player, but he was never, to me, the best player in the game. I think he's just someone who benefited from all the space that he was being given by the ridiculous interpretation of the ruck and the rules. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Larry. Obviously, we've seen V'landys come out and say they're going to start sim-binning people if they keep lying around in the rack. So teams have obviously learned if we can slow down the play to ball, we slow down those players. Like, look at Trbojevic, quiet start to the season. Tedesco, quiet start to the season. All these players that excelled with that speed are now starting to lack.
Yeah, but then Ryan Pappenhausen is still killing it. So, Billy Slater found a way where there was the most wrestle that there was in the game to be the best player in the game or one of the best players in the game. I think if you're good enough, you can find a way. So, I think the game's been much better this year. We've got the balance right. And I don't want to deter. I know this is about the 10 things we learned, and I don't mean to detract, but I think this is a really important topic. It really is, right? And I hated the rugby league last season. It was ridiculous. We were just seeing blowouts every single game. It was touch football. Origin didn't feel like Origin. Origin was played like at this. It just felt like 2 prime NRL sides. It felt like the Tigers versus the Eels in 2009. It was just 2 high-scoring sides. Probably won't make the finals. That's how Origin felt. And that's not how I want my rugby league to be viewed, mate. It's just you want that gladiator. You want the gladiator aspect to the game. You want that toughness, the grittiness. Like forwards still need to be an important part of the game. It's not all about the small guy running in space. You know what I mean? So with all due respect, Peter V'landys, and I think he's done a belting job overall, by the way. The NRL is actually making money. They're looking at acquiring assets. So from a business perspective, he smashed it. But mate, please don't ruin the fabric of the game. That's all. I'll leave that there. But let's continue to move through things. Number 2, Manu, best center in the game. Can I say his try at the end, he had no right. I thought the Broncos were the better side. I think they should have won the game, and probably with better game management they do. But the Roosters, again, show you why they've been the pinnacle of the last 5 years or so. Absolutely, the good sides find a way to win when it's not all going their way. Joey Manu, best center in the game.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say this wasn't anything biased coming from me. That was Larry's pick. So Larry has chucked that one in there. It's not being biased from me now. I did write down a few stats from that game, and obviously he did get the 2 tries. Larry got us back into the game. 107 running meters, 31 post contact, and 45 kicking meters. So not only is he carrying that ball into space, but he's also carrying it and pushing through the defensive lines. And he's also helping out and giving that another option where he gets it from dummy half and he puts a little chip in to get that repeat set. So we're probably going to get some hate. People are probably going to say he's not the best center, but he's definitely up there in contention with that top 2, top 3.
All right, well, you tell me. If he's not, and I know you agree with me, but if he's not the best center, who is?
Oh, you can't just put me on the spot like that. Obviously, me personally, I agree with you. I think he is the best center.
I mean, look at Origin, right? They don't even put centers in the Origin side. They use makeshift fullbacks to play there. You know what I mean? And the Queensland's, who they used there last year? They used the back rower. Well, he's Broncos player now. I'm having a mind blank. What's his name? Penrith last season, playing at the Broncos now, back rower. He was playing in the centres for Queensland. Capewell, Luke Capewell. Case in point.
Kurt Capewell.
Right?
Kurt Capewell.
Kurt Capewell. And then you had Dane Gagai, who I still think's a prime centre, doing great things for Newcastle. But yeah, for me, Joey Manu is the only one who plays there week in, week out, no matter what team he's in, and he absolutely smashes it. So as far as I'm concerned, best centre in the game. Number 3, Warriors' success dependent on Johnson. Secures the field goal that wins them the game against the Cowboys. And I'm seeing something about the Warriors that tells me, you know what? Maybe they might just make the 8 this year. I think they'll need a few things to go their way, like they always do, but there's something about him this year, right? There's a bit of a grit and a determination, but Sean Johnson's the polish. I don't think they can achieve anything without him, as we saw in the few weeks where he wasn't there.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, they just have those forwards. They have the forwards off the bench. So when they're getting these players come off while the defensive line's tired, they're getting these big forwards off the bench who are coming in, and they might not be the biggest names. They might not be the best forwards, but no matter who comes off the field, who comes on, they're playing the exact same game, the exact same strength. So obviously, it is 3 wins on the trot. They beat Tigers, they beat Brisbane, now they beat Cowboys. I guess you could say they're looking in the right direction, Larry. Like you said, everything's got to go their way. They need to stop losing games to the big teams and not just beating the teams below them. But if you're a Warriors fan, like we do also usually have Jackson in here when we do go live, if you're a Warriors fan, happy days. And if Johnson's not there, we've seen what happens. They go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think for Noah Blake's also absolutely crucial. But sure, look, as you see, every team who wins the comp, you do it with an elite halfback. And I think, yeah, Sean Johnson is definitely that on his day. Number 4, Dragons are spoon contenders. Boy, oh boy, the Dragons. Firstly, the team selection. I've seen Sloan has been dropped for Mbai at fullback 2 weeks running. I don't get it. The feedback from Griffin has been he needs to work on the defensive side of his game. Mate, they don't score points, and they're conceding more points without him there. So, I mean, what do the Dragons do? What do you think of their team selection? But, oh my gosh, their overall performance. Because they're not as bad as they're showing, surely.
Well, I mean, obviously, we sat here at the start of the season. We said Dragons are going to surprise some people. They have the talent to do that. We sat here 2 weeks ago, Larry, or 3 weeks ago when they just lost to Panthers. And we said this team's playing finals football. And now we sit here in round 5 and we go, what the heck is going on with this team? Obviously, I don't think Bird is the person to partner Hunt in the halves. I think Amon has to start there. He came off the bench. He got that try assist. They look so much better. Yeah. And with having Amon in that position, it takes that pressure off Hunt. Hunt had, I think I read somewhere, Hunt had the most touches by any player in the NRL this weekend, bar hookers. So that's going to cause fatigue and that's going to cause mistakes. And boy, did he make a lot of mistakes on the weekend.
And I'm all for halves being in the game, right? I mean, Jonathan Thurston, one of the most dominant halfbacks I've seen. But it's about picking and choosing your times. You can overplay your hands as well. So, yeah, 100% agree with you there. Lots of work to be done for the Dragons. Number 5, Eels are a premiership threat. again, it's funny. They versed the Titans in round one. That was I think it was 4 points, 28-32. I think they ran away. And then in this one, again, another tight one, 26-20. Eels, they find a way to win. Again, a team that's learning winning habits. They beat Melbourne in Melbourne, coming from behind there. I like this Parramatta side. And if you're, again, like you say, early days, if you're telling me to pick my grand finalists, I'm telling you, Penrith Panthers and the Parramatta Eels at the moment.
I'm going to agree and disagree with you here. Only on the basis of one thing here. Obviously, in the image below, you do have Dylan Brown. You do have Moses. They're unbelievable. They did beat Melbourne. They're finding the way to win. What I don't like about their game is if you wrap up every single game they've played so far, they're conceding almost 21 points a game. What we've heard for the last 10, 15 years is defense wins premierships. And when you come up against a Penrith, a Melbourne, yes, they beat them, but you're not always going to get the rub of the green. You're not always going to get a lucky kick that hits the post and bounces back to Ray Stone. So I think if they can clean up the defense a little bit, get that 21-point average down to about 14, they're in the premiership race. But until then, there's still a lot of questions to be asked.
Yeah, I hear that argument, and they're not flawless. But you know what? You would rather be where the Eels are now with improvements still to come in their game rather than humming in every single direction. You know what I mean? So I think if they get it right, if they time this right, I think they can absolutely fly. Mind you,
besides
again,
Melbourne.
I sit here. Sorry?
Yeah. I said besides Melbourne, they've played the Titans, who almost lost to the Tigers twice. That's where two of their wins have come from. They've played, the Dragons, who I think most teams are going to put 20, 30 points on them. And they lost to the Sharks, their only other real test. So, yes, they're firing now, but is it a bit of they've played the Dragons? Cool. Everyone's going to beat the Dragons.
They still beat Melbourne. They still did beat Melbourne. Now, you can argue that was luck or not luck, but it was a targeted kick. Yeah, sure, a bit lucky. But how many teams keep Melbourne at 10 points? I just watched my team get flogged 44-0 by Melbourne last week. So, you know what I mean? Like, yes, it's double-edged sword, but I don't think they need to be perfect right now. I'm saying if they continue the way that they are going, then I think they can absolutely... Look, I think there are only 3 teams who can win the comp this year. I really do. And look, you might disagree with me. I know what I said at the start of the season. I've changed my mind on the Roosters. Something's missing there for me at the moment. They might find that later, but at the moment, it's Penrith, Eels, Melbourne. Like, for me, they're the clear. It's so clear those 3 are ahead of everyone else at the moment. We'll wait and see.
I don't have the Roosters. I have one other team that we will get to in 0.7, but we'll wait a little bit till we get to that.
All right, we'll wait, indeed. Number 6, Titans lack killer instincts. Like we just said, Parramatta, obviously, running out winners. Titans, they're losing tight games, and that's going to kill them. You always see that side every year where you just, well, not every year. Last year, we definitely didn't see that. There was a big gap between 8th and the rest. But you look at the Titans, they remind me of, I want to say, what year was it? There was a year with the Sharks. Sharks actually finished 3rd in 2009? No, 2008. I know that's a long way away, but if you remember the Sharks in 2008, defensively greedy side, every win they had was by 4 points. Or 4 points, they were that sort of team. But everyone knew they wouldn't win the comp. The Titans remind me of that, but on the other side. Unfortunately, they're losing those tight games. And until they learn how to do that, they might find it. But until then, like, this is why they're not going to make finals.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And obviously the Titans, they are a very young squad. So I think that also plays into it. They don't have that too much experience to come in and win those tight games. They want to stick to their guns, want to score points. And if they concede 20, they're hoping that they can score 24. It's not a team that's trying to keep other teams to 0. So I think in the long run, letting the youth play, letting them be that attacking is going to be good for them, but it's not going to happen for a year or 2 if they keep playing this style.
Indeed. Young halves too, which is difficult. But you know what? I got to say, Holbrook, he's getting a bit of a pass, isn't he? I mean, you look at the pressure that's come around other coaches for similar results. The Titans haven't been making the finals. I find it interesting that he's not under pressure. Not that I don't think he should be. I think there's absolutely no patience in the NRL. I mean, you hear about, and look, we'll get to the Tigers. I'll hold my next point for the Tigers. But let's talk about number 7. Sharks bite into the top 4. Now, again, you just said earlier, there's one side that you think I've missed in that premiership conversation. I've got to say, I do like what the Sharks are doing.
Yeah, and like I said, you've named the top three. You've pretty much hit the nail on the head. You've probably got the Roosters and the Sharks just behind them as people that could make a run into that premiership. Now, you look at what Nico Hines has done. Not only has he come in and been brilliant, he's brought Matt Moylan to life. He's brought the rest of that squad to life, and they've just been dominant. Like, we didn't expect them to gel this early, Larry. New coach, new players, a fullback playing halves, or a player we thought was going to be fullback, and he's dominating the league at the moment. So if you're a Sharks fan, it's happy days.
Nico Hines is the surprise packet, isn't he? Like, I got to be honest, man. I did not think he was this good. I really did. It's actually, no, I'm going to rephrase that. I did know he was this good. I didn't know he was this good at game management. Like, when I thought of Nico Hines, you think ball runner, on the ball, supportive player, can break a tackle, good kicking game, good game management. Where do you pull this out of? You know, oh man, he is the surprise packet. By the end of this season, we could be talking about him as, well, if Nathan Cleary ever gets injured, New South Wales Blues got their second choice halfback. Like, he is phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been unreal. And obviously, like I said, he can play fullback. So if there's in that New South Wales squad and a fullback goes down, you shuffle a little bit, there's your number one. So yeah, it's good to see him obviously excel, and it's good to see someone actually leave Melbourne and actually do good once they've left Melbourne.
Yeah, 100%. Dale Finucane as well, absolutely killing out the Sharks. Yeah. That brings us on to who they beat. What we learned, number 8, no hope for toothless Tigers. My, oh my, where do you start with the Tigers? They're a mess, mate. They make me feel good about the Bulldogs. They're so bad, and they're bad everywhere. Like, they're a side that struggles with an identity. They don't know whether they belong in Leichhardt or Campbelltown, which, if you're not from Sydney, they're very far from each other, trust me. There's pressure on their coach every week. He was close to getting the sack at the end of last season. Tim Sheens has the power to do some things, like fire the coach, but not really much else. Their playing squad is struggling. I don't know what to say about the Tigers. They're just, where do you start? They're a rabble, top to bottom.
Well, you said they have an identity crisis when it comes to their stadium. They have an identity crisis when they have to go for a captain's challenge. There's 5 of them, and I don't see one leader on that park, Larry. I don't see one person stepping up and trying to say, listen, guys, it's not good enough. We need to turn this around. It's the first time in club's history they've lost 5 games on the trot to start the season. I then looked to the weekend. I don't know if you watched that game. There was one point where Ronaldo Mulitano took, I think it was Garner, into touch, and he's pushed him. And Garner's got up ready to fight because he was laughing at him and like kind of defend himself. Not one Tiger player ran in to defend him or have his back. And that kind of shows you, like what you just said, from the start down, there's just no leadership. There's no team cohesion. And it's a scary time that it took one intercept in, I think, the last minute of the game for their first try in almost 2.5 games. So that's scary times if you're a Tigers fan.
Yeah, it definitely is. I compare them to Manchester United in the football at the moment. I mean, just a team that when you're struggling, no one's quite on the same wavelength. Everyone's trying hard individually. Like when I watch that's the thing. When I watch the Tigers, to me, it doesn't appear to be a lack of desire. I think individually they're trying hard. I really do believe that. But I think there's clicks because when things are going bad, it's always someone else's fault rather than your own. And they just look like a side that really needs a strong leader to come together and say, listen, boys, we're in this together and we have to come out of it together. Otherwise, it's just going to continue this way. In saying that, look, I don't think it's the strongest playing roster in the world either. So, I mean, we can sit here and blame Michael Maguire. Can I ask you on this, Michael Maguire? What would any other coach do for them at the moment? This is what kills me about rugby league media. What would another coach do for that team at the moment? On paper, they're not higher than where they are. I mean, they're in the bottom 3 sides in the NRL. There's no debating that, surely, right?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think any coach is going to come in and change this in a year. Obviously, you've already brought it up. You've made the press. You've spoken about United. We're in the same situation, Larry. And obviously, this isn't a soccer podcast, but it's the same situation. If a coach comes in now, there's a lot of work to do. He needs to get rid of that dead wood that aren't trying. Then maybe they're too old. He needs to bring in players that fit his system. And then, fingers crossed, hopefully in a couple of years, the Tigers go back to, I'd say glory, but usually they just go for that top 9. So let's hope they get back to 9 sometime soon.
You know what? I like the Tigers. I really do. They're one of those clubs, like, when they're on, it's not... And, you know, like, I want to see the Sydney clubs do well. I really do. Like, this rugby league saying rugby league's doing well and South's doing well. I mean, with all due respect, I don't really care about South. But, we've got a big game against them on Friday, so I have to start ripping the salt into the wound. And that brings me to what we learnt. Number 10. Flanagan is the Dogs' best half. I know that the Dogs lost convincingly yesterday. They made a lot of mistakes, and I think they didn't help their own cause. Panthers obviously showing why they are still premiership favourites. I thought Flanagan was solid.
Yeah, obviously he was solid. Funnily enough, we're in round 5, Larry. That is the first assist by a Dogs halfback this year. So that goes to show you that he's come in. Honestly, I was expecting you to cop maybe 50 points, if I'm being completely honest. It's a Penrith side that's dominant. You copped it from Melbourne. Not only did we see less tries going in, less points getting scored, we almost saw a bit of leadership. We almost saw Flanagan go, give me the ball. I'll put the kicks up. I'll take ownership. Burden, you be that creative player like you can. I think that's the way forward for the Dogs, and I think he's got his spot. I don't think he should lose his spot right now.
Mate, he should be the halfback for. I said it. I obviously didn't say it on here. He should be the halfback for 6 weeks at least. And look, I think he showed enough against the best team in the competition to say he's definitely our halfback going forward. Now for the real number 10. For the real number 10. So that was number 9. My apologies. Number 10. Broncos show some fight. I know they lost to the Roosters. Like I said, at point number 2, I think with better game management, they win that game. I think they were the better side overall. But they did show something, didn't they? And again, do you think that the Brisbane side can be a contender for a top 8 spot?
Oh, I mean, when you've got a player like Adam Reynolds leading that squad around, there's always that possibility that you can fight for that top 8 spot. Now, if I wasn't a Roosters fan, I'd probably be sitting here saying that was the game of the round, but my heart's still trying to come down from that very high blood pressure that it gave me. So, like you said, we probably didn't deserve to win that game. Manu didn't deserve to score those 2 tries he scored. Tupanua should never get through a gap that much. So a little bit of game management, a little bit more defense. Brisbane win that game. Stags, back to his best. Coates, absolutely unbelievable.
How good is Tony Stags? Man, if he stays fit, he can be anything.
I heard a lot of hate get thrown actually towards Paul Momorowski. He's known for his defense. Mate, Stags made him look silly. And not that I'm going to say he had a good game, because Momorowski did not have a good game, but I think anyone that was against Stags that night was going to get made to look like a clown, exactly what he did to Momorowski. So on his day, you're going to have a lot of clubs wanting to throw the checkbook at him and try and lure him when he's off contract.
Yeah, I mean, he recently signed an extension with the Broncos, didn't he? And with good reason too. And Payne Haas, I mean, I know there's this whole debate around his agent shopping him around and whatever. I'm not going to really go into that, but he's so good. He's the best prop in the game. I mean, he's definitely in the conversation. I like Fanua Blake at Warriors. I think he's proven it for longer. But Payne Haas, man, he's a handful. He breaks tackles, he offloads. He's got decent pace for a big man too. Big motor. I really like him. He's worth I think he's on reportedly $850 a year. He deserves every dollar of that. I think he's an elite prop. And he's 22. I mean, he's got a long career ahead of him for sure.
100%. Obviously, if he can keep his head on straight, not get into these off-field dramas, hopefully that's the last one we hear about him for a very long time, because he's got the potential to be the best player in this game not the best player, but the best, like you said, the best prop in this game for a very long time. So fingers crossed he keeps his head straight. Someone gets to him and says, calm down, just play football, stop being an idiot. And it's happy days for him. But Larry, I'm going to chuck it a +1 just because we won. Let's show some love to the women's game. The Roosters obviously did take out the NRLW grand final on the weekend. Funnily enough, the only reason they were there was because Brisbane trounced the Eels in the last round. Roosters come on, they beat Brisbane. They then come on and they beat the Dragons. And I don't know if you watched the game, Larry, but it was almost, I won't want to say packed crowd, but there was a couple thousand people watching them at Redcliffe. So hopefully that grows the game. More teams jump on board, and it's growing, which is good to see.
I did see the game. And they came from behind as well. So
that's 2 weeks in a row. It was 16-0 after 10 minutes in the semi-final, and then obviously 4-0 at halftime.
Can I be honest with you? And this is just truthfully being honest. It's not that I haven't wanted to get behind watching female rugby league, but I think as men, and I see this a lot, and that's why I feel like it's really important to make this point. I think as men, we probably naturally gravitate to watching the men's game. We seem to think that if we watch the women's game, it might not be at a level of intensity that we're used to or anything like that. Man, I tell you, some of those girls hit. And in fact, I actually enjoy watching the girls more in the respect of the technique they use. Like the girls don't buy into the wrestle. Man, these women, they're doing the old traditional way, shoulder into the ribs, and they're tackling you hard. And they get 3 in there, and it's a cleaner, it's a purer version of rugby league. Put it that way.
Oh, 100%. Obviously, you saw a hit on the weekend where I think it was Corbin McGregor from the Roosters. It took her a good 5 minutes to get up because her ribs, everyone was like, it's a high tackle. And you watched it back and it wasn't. It was a crunch straight to the ribs.
Good.
So,
yeah. Congratulations to the Roosters girls, but also congrats to the Dragons as well. I mean, look, to get to a grand final is an achievement. And, I genuinely do hope that I really do hope the women's game continues to grow. I think it's awesome. And I hope that women, like young girls, have those role models to look up to, like we did growing up. You've got a photo of Brad Fittler from you being young, which you hold close to you. And I think young girls growing up deserve the right to have that too. So fingers crossed that continues to happen. Tony, that's been 10 things. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, mate. We'll definitely do a preview of round 6. Very much looking forward to the Good Friday clash, Dogs, Rabbitohs. So you're welcome to come to that with me, by the way. Anyway, I'll take that conversation offline. I don't want to bore people with that conversation. But if you are new here, like I said, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on the video. It helps us a lot. And Tony, please tell the people what happens. What happens if you don't subscribe? What happens if you don't hit that like button?
You're going with Flegler and you're going for 10.
You're going for 10, and you don't want that. You don't want to be in the sin bin. It's nearly Easter. Be joyful. Do what we ask, because we're good blokes. We deserve it. Tony, been a pleasure, mate. Everyone out there, have a good night. And, we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Pleasure. Cheers.